So I am the Energy Rabbi, and I want to welcome Julie and whoever else is going to be viewing this upcoming to a really extraordinary opportunity for all of us. And what is an Energy Rabbi? What does that even mean? Do I look like a rabbi? Does a rabbi have to look like something? And I'll give a very short introduction about who I am, because it's really important to get a sense of what we're going to be doing here today. And so I have Yu Smicha. I am a rabbi of the Orthodox Welt, from Rav Soloveitchik and handed down from all the way from Moshav Rabbeinu. And it's a little bit of a different story than many others. Many others found their way to be inspiring leaders in the Jewish community via going out into Eastern religions or other spiritual practices and bringing that back. For me, it's a little bit the opposite. I began deeply entrenched in the Orthodox community and know its insides and outs, and I was gifted and exposed to really what my soul's calling is. And let's just begin taking a moment. Go into your life, someplace, from now looking back. Find some event that you could only describe as a soul event. What I mean by that is that somebody, usually as somebody else, entered into your life at a very specific moment. Could have been a one-time exchange, could have been a one-time meeting, could have been that they're still in your life. But that first moment you met them, or a turning point, probably a first-time moment where you just know the whole trajectory of your life was changed. Sort of like, imagine a ship sailing, and a ship that's your life, and the water is, call it time and space, we'll get to that, and you're heading in one direction, and you just adjust the sails ever so slightly, just 2 degrees to the right, you end up in a completely different direction. That kind of experience, find that soul timeline. I have one. I have many. One that comes to mind at the moment. And this could be a soul timeline moment. Any moment could be. And so I had that soul timeline moment that gave me an exposure to something that normally would never be considered. It's not even a mainstream thing, but really what I like to call it as is seeing beyond the matrix. Having an option of taking the red pill and seeing reality one way, and having a profound experience that then we see reality in a completely different way. And I'd like to take a quote from Joseph Campbell of The Hero's Journey, where he says that people are not really seeking for the meaning of life. Rather, they are seeking for the experience of being alive. And so often people are like, I need my purpose in life. I need to find what my life is all about. And really all that they want is just to be plugged into life, beyond the mind. So let's dive in and give a little more of an intro before we get some of those potential experiences for all of us. So, as we know, well, I'm going to open up with a question for you. What is spirituality? Right? We often hear the spiritual. What does that mean to you? So you could potentially write down, I would recommend even having a notebook here. You may want to write down some things of your own insights. So spirituality is often defined as the unseen part of life, the unseen parts of reality that impact the physical reality, the reality that we can feel with our senses, that we can know, and most importantly, that we can engage our mind with. Our mind can conceive and achieve. And so spirituality actually really has 2 different definitions, whether you look in the Eastern way that it's experienced or in the Western. In the Eastern, it's a very abstract thing, right? In India, just in some Eastern countries, Hinduism, Buddhism, potentially, where you go into the mountains, you go out and leave your family and life, and you just separate yourself from regular life in order to experience the unseen and God. So it's a very abstract experience that's divorced from physical life. And if you go to all the way the Western world, which often gets confused with spirituality, but spirituality in the Western world is something that's practical and pragmatic. What can I do with this? Right? I had a spiritual experience. Okay, now what? What does that do for me? Spirituality needs to have an immediate practical application. The problem in the Western world is that it has to be very often a practical application for the self, for me. Okay, how does it make my life better? How does it serve me? And really, it messes with us a little bit because the spiritual doesn't operate according to our needs. It tells us what is required of us. So the West has it a little bit confused. What happens if we could bridge the two together? And the truth is that Torah really does that. Yom Tov Glaser, an earlier speaker, really once framed that for me, that Israel is the centerpiece of those two. And I want to add an additional layer or two to that. So, another way of looking at it is Jews and non-Jews, right? Take two different experiences of, is spirituality only for the Jews, or is it for all of humans, right? So, in the West, right, it's very much, there's separate ways of connecting to God. There's different, right, it's very much, there's different people, different ways of doing it. While in the East, it's very much about oneness. And that's the experience in the East. And so today I want to give us that experience of some tools we can use to tap into what's really going on. What's really a way that we could access spirituality immediately beyond the mind. If you think about it, the things that are most real are usually not seen. And it doesn't even have to be a religious or spiritual context. Just think about words that we use, the words or mannerisms that we use, right? Communication is 7% words. It's 93% everything else. Take, for example, the world that we see with our eyes. It seems like a physical matter. 95% of an electron, which is what composes the physical reality, is space, is empty space. So what we experience is real. Is it really real? And a really good example of this, just to give you a little bit of an early cheat sheet here, is time. Is time real in the way we experience it? Or is time a figment of our imagination? Now, obviously, things need to get done in the physical time, but how about how we experience it, right? Just think about the way we have those different experiences of a same exact circumstance, right? You can be in a class, and if it's boring, 2 minutes feels like 2 hours. And if it's invigorating and exalting your life, then that 1 hour goes by so quickly. How can you experience two things? You're not even doing anything. You're just passively sitting there, right? You could say it engages with you. Yes, it engages with you. But what is it in really engaging for you? Is it, okay, it's the things that matter to you. Now we're getting a little deeper. What does that say about you? What matters to you? So we have 50 minutes here. We're going to take about 30 minutes to go through some tools that you can begin to experience the unseen just a little differently than we might have previously experienced it. And then we're going to dive into Torah and how this reflects in Torah, which is really where the connections are unbelievable. So I want to give us a few energetic tools. I'm going to move back here a little bit and give us some experiences of this. So the first is a very simple energetic tool. To feel the energy, and when I say energy, energy is the force that allows information to come into reality, right? Information, the data that makes a physical body, the data that makes thoughts, the data that makes new opportunities present themselves, right? So somebody can go right? A business can go completely bankrupt. Or someone can say, wow, the economy is doing absolutely terrible right now. All the shopping malls are closing down. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And somebody can see it like that and just have a hopeless, or someone can just react very strongly to that and give up. Or somebody can say, wow, there's new opportunities here. Let's invest in these buildings. And when the economy sinks, then we'll pour more funds into it and we'll transform it into a multi-generational house where we can plant crops here all year long. I know someone that's investing in that. But you can look at it from either perspective. And sometimes the amount of energy one has elicits new kinds of thoughts and experiences. So let's have a first experience with energy. And one is, let's just have a really simple one. One is your body stance, right? So when try a few different body postures, right? And just pause with each one. So the first one is however you're sitting now. But let's just say you're sitting like this, hunched over. And just sit with that for a moment. And just think of something that you're grateful for, right? And just take a moment. How did you experience gratitude in that posture? And now just sit back, chest open, shoulders back, so it's really just flush here. And now think of something grateful. What's that experience? Body mannerisms make a huge difference to what available energy we have, right? Or you could be standing up and you could have your arms crossed. And observe this in other people. Or they could have their hands out in front of them like this. Or their hands open. And so now let's get a more direct experience where you can practice. So take your hands, open your hands, and place your hands on your chest. And say something that you know is real, is true. Not in a physical sense, because we're not working with physicality. We're working with what's behind it. So put your hands on your chest and say it out loud, something you know to be true. Or you can just observe me and get a sense for which one feels more energized, more real, more coherent. So what's true is I am true, I am alive, and I have people in my life I care about very much. Now put your hands out, way out. And see if you can draw an energy from out there. And now I'm going to say something true and real. We are all one, and we are connected beyond our wildest dreams. Everything in nature, every human being, it's completely beyond anything we can comprehend, and it's for our complete benefit. And we can experience anything we put our minds to. Look at that, someone just joined the live chat. So which one felt more energized to you? The hands on the chest or the hands in the air? It should be pretty clear. And now do it for yourself, where you put your hand on your chest and say what you know is true. And who gives a crud what anybody else thinks? It's what you are experiencing. So the first time I did this, I thought I had more energy inside of me because that's where I used to look for energy. I put my hands out here. Wow, what a new experience of connecting to spiritual, to spirit, to new possibilities. So that's the first one. Now, the next one's going to be a little more subtle, because it might not have to do with space, but it's just simply, well, one more actually, we're going to do one with hand postures, the way your hands face. So a little more subtle than where your hands were, just your whole arms were aligned, but now with your hands, right? So I'll talk about an experience, let's just say I'll talk about any area of life, and sometimes it's good to focus on an area of life. I'll give you a few that are commonly discussed: health, business and money, relationships. So right, I'll talk about relationships with my hands facing. And you could just even just face, right? People often do energy experiences just having their hands together. And while this may seem like complete voodoo and just weird stuff, I mean, isn't life freaking weird? What do you expect? That spirit is going to make sense to the mind? Quick fact about that is that actually 99% of what we experience originates either from soul or spirit. Could be something artistic, could be the way people intermingle, or below the mind. So if somebody is running for their life, whether actually or they're in a state of trauma, for example, or reaction, an instinctual reaction in relation to an environment that you could be in. And the mind just follows based on those experiences. So let's return to this hand motion thing. Boom, boom, just for fun, you just go like this. Can you do two things at once like that? So put your hand facing your chest, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to talk about the area of my life, relationships. Actually, I'm going to talk about health. Let's talk about my health. And I'm doing this because no one else is with me, but if I was with somebody, I would engage them in this way. So my health is just really sucky. I'm not living vitally the way that I would like, and I don't really know what to do about it. That's facing one way. Hands out here. Health actually doesn't originate from me. It's wholesome. It's being plugged into something so much bigger. Healing is a self-organizing mechanism. And so just see the way your hands are postured, or even if you sense from me the energy differential between those two experiences with your hands. And I want to give us another experience of how to be with energy. And it's alignment with words. Because words are really intended to be a carrier of experience. And I'll quote our first Torah here today from the word teva. Right? Teva means word. And teva also means arc. A word is a carrier of an experience. But when a word is not aligned with an experience, we sense it, right? Like someone's trying to sell us something. Oh, this is the greatest thing you could ever buy. We sense, when a word is not aligned with an experience, right? It's just something is so off about it when it's looking to present itself authentically, right? So I could say something like, I absolutely love you. Or I could say, I love you. And I'm going to do that again. And can you sense which one is authentic, which one is energetically aligned, and which one is not? Right? And it's easy. It's hard to do this with things that are more painful, to admit something that's, right, oh, this sucks. Or to say, no, everything's good. Everything's good. Is it really good? Or are we just stuck in the matrix there? So I'm going to give you an experience of words and sense if you feel like they're energetically aligned. You know this. So I'm going to give you an experience from the future here with words. What happens if life came from somewhere you never thought it came from? The next step in your life is from a place of extraordinary. Okay, that's one. See if you felt that was aligned to the words, because I promised something big there. Was there energy behind that? And then how about this? Yeah, I want an extraordinary relationship. Yeah, I would like that. I'm ready for that. I'm going to try the best I can, and if it works out, great. If not, then that sucks. How did you sense that? Right? And there's certain words, I call them the trigger words, that you know very often if somebody's energy is not high, right? Words like try. Oh, I'll try to give you a call. Is that reliable? Is that trustworthy? Or a word like but. I love you, but. Is that reliable? I mean, what a shift there. I love you, but. Right? And then there's other words that are, or a declarative statement is one of higher energy. Let's say we have an event planned. Yeah, it's done. I'm going to take care of it. You'll come over at 7 o'clock. It'll all be taken care of. It's done. What kind of energy is that? Right? Different kinds of energy based on the words. And we're so often programmed by our culture. We're all from a culture where we all have like this unspoken agreement to use certain words. An example, Baruch Hashem. How's everything? Baruch Hashem. Everything's great. Baruch Hashem. What percentage of time is it actually blessing God when someone's saying that? Energetically. You feel the ping of God entering that conversation. Not as often as the words are used. Right? So words are really powerful. And I'm going to give you now another experience. So take out a paper, another way of sensing energy and experiencing energy in a really powerful, real way. And I just want to remind anyone who's joined now, we're discussing energy and different ways of picking up energetic cues. And the energy is in the unseen, the spiritual, and shows up all over life, all areas of life. So, the next is emotions. Right? Very often we make decisions, especially men, masculine. We say, we're making a decision, no emotions involved. I like to say, every decision I make has emotion involved. Emotion. Emotion means movement. Make it happen. Now, emotion doesn't have to be like the therapy model of the 6 or 7 main emotions of happiness, sadness, guilt, shame. Emotions can be really anything. Because emotions is an experience. Right? You can experience kindness. Kindness can actually be an emotion. I'll show you how. I'm actually going to give a little bit of context for this in a Torah sense. Actually, no. First, we're going to do it this way. So I'm going to give you an experience of an emotion. And an emotion doesn't have to be rah. No, that's not an emotion. I mean, it is, but it's not the kind of emotion that I'm talking about. Right? I'm talking about the emotion of making change instantly through an emotion. What I like to call this is an emotion that immediately changes the energy. And there's two levels to doing this. Well, there's infinite levels, but I'm going to introduce you 2 levels. I can't believe we're sharing this information live here. Oh, I can't wait until it ties into Torah. Ooh, whoever the one viewer is, just get more viewers. So I'm going to experience a few different emotions. See if you can guess what it is. Just have fun with it. And I'm going to embody an emotion. Okay, ready? And when I say emotion, it can be any quality that really is, let's say, meaningful. So here we go. I'll start off a little easier. Okay, ready? Oh, I almost had to stand up for that one. Got it. What did you sense for that emotion? That one actually it was on the verge of power or strength. Next emotion. That's a little more subtle, though it is really vibrant. That is the emotion of love. Though I'm not sure I did that one so accurately, so I'm curious if you picked up on a different one. Okay, now I'm going to give a very different emotion. Okay. So, that one was victory. And let's do one more. Okay, that one was a little interesting. That one was frisky. Now, yes, that could be an emotion, and there's so many. Kindness is one. I mean, there's hundreds, thousands. Emotions immediately move energy. And people might say, oh, I'm experiencing anger. If it lasts for an extended period of time, it's no longer an emotion. It's like, for example, somebody has a breakup or a death or a big loss of money, something, let's say, unfortunate, right? If they're still experiencing it years later, is that still an emotion? Or is that something else that's triggering the thought? That seems that we tell ourselves that it is an emotion, but no, we're just reliving that experience. And we're choosing to, when we could choose something so much different and more. So, we are going to dive into the next level of emotions, which is dual emotions. And I did not make this up. The Torah actually makes this up. The Torah brings this to life. And where does this exist? This exists in this time of the year, the 49 days of the Omer, where if you had to guess and write down for yourself the 7 most important qualities that would get you to be ready for the Torah. You might have 7, right? And the 7 are chesed, kindness, gevura, a very oversimplified descriptions. Let's call it strength. More like a samurai strength, like an internal discipline strength. Tiferet, beauty, perhaps love. Netzach, victory. Hod, glory. And gratitude. Or appreciation. Yesod. See if you can pick up on that emotion. Nope, I didn't have it yet. Hold on. Intimacy, Yesod, and Malchut, kingship, or perhaps you can interpret it as leadership and selflessness. So those 7 are really not 7. And they're not even, well, let's actually begin. It's 49. Each day we experience 2 emotions. So now, and the reason for this is because it presents us with the opportunity for infinite amount of change to get ready for the Torah. So let's take 2 emotions now and combine them. What in God's name does that mean? So take 2 emotions. Let's say you want to take kindness and strength. So experience kindness in one hand. And perhaps get some imagery, if imagery works for you. Maybe the feeling, the sense of it. Right? And you can even just, we're already crazy, so just go out there and, in a sense, like, feel it. Feel, where is kindness? Where can I, like, touch it almost? Space is not empty. It's filled with possibilities. So feel kindness. And kind is really like kindred, a kindred spirit, something that is alike. Really, which is what chesed is. Chesed olam yibaneh. The world was created with kindness. It's the oneness, which is really why kindness exists. You are really only kind to somebody genuinely when you know that you and them share something, right? So you could be kind. Oh, they have money, I want money. I'm going to be kind. But that's not real kindness. Obviously, the ultimate kindness is knowing that we are all one. We are all connected as one grand soul that has the illusion of being separate. So experience kindness in one hand. And I'm going to tap into the emotion of kindness, and you do as well. And I don't have to see you to know that you're there, and here just connecting to the kindness. And now strength. Just that indomitable strength. Whatever that means to you, wherever that is. And now take those two emotions, kindness and strength. Would you ever put those two emotions together and blend them? So take kindness and strength. This is what the 49 days are about. I mean, we say it. Let's live it. So you take kindness and strength. Now the fun part of this is, do you want to be strong kindness or kind strength? Very, very different. So like a kind strength would maybe be like this. Here we go. Kind strength. Wow, I really nailed that one. And strong kindness. Cool. And now what's so cool about this is you could take any emotions, right? So let's say you want to take victory, Netzach, right, which is represented by Moshe, the ultimate victor, right? Really, he led them into the land of Israel. And really, it's even more than that, victorious as, just his vision came into fruition. Victory, and let's combine that with, of the seven, we're up to Malchus, so let's combine victory and, let's take Yesod, and Yesod and intimacy. So intimate and victorious. Now, just a brief definition of what intimate means, right? You could either take the English word into me, you see, intimacy. Yosef embodies intimacy. And intimacy is Yosef let himself be seen, which is a little ironic because it took him a while to do that with his brothers, but he also saw them. He saw them the whole way. He was the dreamer. He was able to see. Madua Paneichem Ra'im Hayom, in the prison, he saw the state of the prisoners. It's fascinating, actually, if you play around with it. And Yesod, which means foundation, right? It also means secret. Now, it could be also often interpreted like, what's like two people like that just haven't yet expressed if there's a problem in a relationship, and like, oh, the secret is now out. But really what it is that the intimacy, the secret is the foundation of it. So meaning, like, oh yeah, we have a lot in common. That's not really the foundation of the relationship. It's just you see me and I see you. And it's beyond words. So let's take intimacy and victory and combine it together as one emotion, which would be Netzach She-Yesod or Yesod She-Benetzach. So let's first experience Netzach She-Yesod. So this is victorious intimacy. That's wild. Victorious intimacy. Victorious intimacy. So I have victory. Now bring it into intimacy. And my facial expressions aren't that much different. It's about feeling the energy, and energy doesn't have a space, so you can potentially experience it from there, or if you're doing it yourself. Or intimate victory. Ooh. Woo! That's going to be an interesting one. Now, where do you experience that? That's the next question. So, intimate victory. When I say where do you experience that? If everything that's going on, right? Now let's say we don't have the illusion of being separate. We realize we're all connected. And therefore, every experience we have, this may sound a little invasive, but it's just consider it for a moment. If every experience you have is not just in your body, it's not just your experience, you're tapping into something that already exists. Lo davar chadash tachat hashamayim. Nothing new exists under the sun. So apply that. Where do you experience something? Where do you draw on that experience? Right? For example, it could be a very practical example, like if someone just downloads or gets a creative inspiration, or just somehow you ever just like say the right words and you're like, where did that come from? Right? Where does that experience generate from? Is it in your body? Is it behind you? Is it in front of you? If that's too hard for you to gather, think about if you've drawn it look at it as from the past or the future. Consider that. The future as way out there in space. We're combining time and space here. If future is way out there and the past is way behind you. So let's say intimacy. Where do you experience intimacy? Right? Now, see if you could, whatever comes first here. Do you experience it first in the future or the past? And then where in space do you experience it? So, intimacy. So I'm drawing on that from the future. That's way out there in my experience. Where is it for you? Victory. Where is that experience? And that's in the future, therefore. I am considering future intimate connections that we're all going to have. And how about victory? And that's interesting. That's more like raining down on me. And that's also from the future, though that one seems to actually have a connection to the past in some way. Whatever that might mean. And then you can interpret where these things are energetically. So what does it mean that victory is raining on me, or that intimacy is in the front? Or let's say it's a painful thing. Let's say intimacy is painful for you. And therefore, you experience it in your chest. That's a little interesting. What do you think that might mean for you? So these are some energetic tools that we can begin to see reality as more than just what our eyes see, what people tell us, or even what we have just habitually learned to believe. Right? As it said, wisdom is when new information comes, the beliefs adapt. So, or the way that we attribute meaning to certain beliefs. Right? So what does God mean to you? So, we're about to dive into the Torah connections here. We have another 20 minutes to go. Thank you for those that are with us right now, and I will also thank those that have joined previously. And hopefully there was something that has so far been worthwhile. So for the Torah part, because everybody that's listening here most likely has a connection to Torah. Now, just like we had different experiences, let's say, of the emotions in relation to energy, everything has an energetic quality to it. Just like the physical table that is right in front of you, or the couch that you're sitting on, or the chair you're sitting on, is not actually physical, so too the concepts that we have of certain things are not actually the reality of them necessarily. The Hebrew language speaks this to us. And we're blessed that when we have a Torah, the Torah doesn't have vowels, which changes its tense. It can be a future word or a past word. There's no vowels. And even the melody, the way that it's punctuated, not just the way that it's punctuated, the melody, which is the flow of the words. Where is there an etnachtan? Etnachtan Hebrew is the climax of the pasuk, of the sentence. That's not there as well. So even how it's read, the intonations are implicit, not explicit. And then my favorite example is that words have multiple meanings, open to multiple interpretations. And very often words in the Torah mean opposites, which is really the most mind-blowing thing. Kadosh means holy. Even that word alone, what does holy mean to you? Right? What does holy mean to me? But it also means kadesha, prostitute. Karet means, right, to bond, to form, let's say, a karet et habrit. The covenant was made. For example, karet also means to destroy. Another example, chet, which is so often associated with a sin or a wrongdoing or a blemish, also means to purify. When it's mentioned in the most important purification process that one could do with a para aduma, it says chet means to purify. So what this means is that the way that words are looked at in the Torah can have opposite meanings. And see how this could apply in your own life. Something that, let's say, you experience as a tremendous pain, or an area of life that you're tremendously stuck in. Like, let's just say it could be a circumstance is one of them, but let's just say it's, I feel I'm just so wounded in life, right? I just had this experience that I had that I'm carrying with me my whole life. What happens if we just inversed that experience, and really it's a gift? Not that that event happened, but looking now retrocausally at the past, the gift of the wound could be in how I support other people, could be in how I prevent that from happening in the future, could be in just really most importantly the person that I have become, because now I see reality in a new way and I have access to new things because that experience isn't holding me back anymore. So let's get a little deeper into the Torah aspect, shall we? Now, what is Torah? We're coming up to Shavuot, the giving of the Torah. What is Torah, right? And most people, rabbis included, I've never really heard a phenomenal, actually I've heard a few phenomenal answers, but right, the Torah, is it an instruction manual? Is it a history book? Is it, as David Foreman says, is it a relationship between God and people? So Torah, first of all, we have to look at, Torah is the blueprint of creation. It is a way, or not a way, the way of creation manifesting. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Well, what does it mean to create? So first, if you look at the story of creation, which is, just like the whole Torah is contained in Bereshis, and everything is contained in the first aliyah, the first pasuk, the first word Bereshit, the first letter, almost like a Big Bang kind of experience. What is creation? What are the ingredients to creation? So if we look at the Torah, right, who we are actually, like if you could just tap into creation, because we are creation. We are created, we are creating, we are constantly being created. Our cells of our body are regenerating minute by minute. Our minds are neuroplastic, meaning they could constantly evolve and change. We are not the same, second by second. So we are just like the goo of creation. We are in it. So what is us? What is creation? What is us? And so if we look at the story of creation, right, is it really a 7-day creation that's just this static thing that just happened once and is never happening again? Or is it a code, a creation's code that gives us insight? And I'll give you one or two. that I'm still discovering in my own life, because it's not content. It's not about what is creation. Okay, this is the shear, this is the source, good, happy, I was inspired, I'm going to be a better Jew. No, it's so much more than that. It can be so much more than that. It can be a reflection of the way that you can see the world, and therefore you can experience that you are being created, and therefore you can create every single second. Right? So, just like we mentioned the words, the best example is how you were physically created. It's not from a stork, if you didn't know. There's no baby machines. It was your mama and dada. Or unless, if you were made from some other way with male and female, masculine and feminine. And just like every word in the Torah is either masculine or feminine, and this is not a gender thing. It's so often interpreted as gender. But as we see, the lines of gender are falling apart. And really what we're realizing more and more is that we need to experience masculine and feminine in the world. And in the Torah gives this to us just single-handedly. That there's all of the creation, right? There's the creation of light and darkness, whatever that means. If that's just the physical creation, obviously not. The rakia, the shamayim, the tree. Oh my God, you can go into so much detail with it. But it was all man. And what did man do? Well, first of all, man was made with female as a part of him. So male and female were one in this initial creation. Right, and man was looking for his other, his ezer kenegdo, his polar opposite. Masculine and feminine are opposites, but yet they are needed for creation. So what is masculine? What is feminine? Well, you could refer to the joke of, okay, God telling Adam, I have the greatest thing that you could ever want. She'll clean your kitchen, she'll do your dishes, she'll satisfy you in ways you've never been satisfied before. Adam says, great, what is that going to cost me? Oh, I missed the joke. My bad. A rib. But it was first an arm and a leg for something else and then the rib. So, masculine and feminine. Right? So they used to be one. And then they get split. And when they get split is when the problems begin. And then they get into what we all know is the fight between male and female. Just the inability to understand. And we see that after they eat from the Eitz Hadat, Adam blames Chava blames Adam. Instead of them just experiencing creation unashamed, and they experience shame after that, by the way, being unashamed, nakedness, to have somebody see each other and be completely at one with that is being unashamed. And what else did they experience? Well, the other experience of masculine and feminine is Shabbat. How? Well, if you think about it, right? Shabbat is the experience of masculine and feminine. It's the 6 days of doing. Masculine, we make it happen. Focus. Direction. Conservation because of focus. That is masculine. 6 days of work. Shabbat, day 7, is about the relationship. We'll come back to that momentarily. The other experience of masculine and feminine, a great analogy of it is, what is the main focus in the Gan Eden? The Eitz HaChaim. Right, the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life, and the Eitz Hadat Tovara. Right, the focus was really for the Eitz HaChaim. The Eitz Hadat Tovara is where they ate from, that made them separate, good and bad. And that's the world that we live in when we're in our minds. There's good and there's bad. What is good, what is bad? Most of the time it's different based on the person. Right? The Torah, yes, it gives us one approach to that, and it can be so much more. So for a moment, Eitz HaChaim. Yes, that's what I was on, the Eitz HaChaim part. Let's just see if there's any comments right now. Oh, Shimi Borgen. And Peter Century. Okay, those are the guys that we got so far. So we're going to just take a moment to look at comments here. What is strength within beauty? That was 17 minutes ago. What is the connection between Tzaddik and Yesod? Shimi, freaking awesome question. If you're still here, Shimi, just ping us and I will address any questions that you have. Shimi loves me. Great. So, Eitz HaChaim. The masculine is the tree. The feminine is the fruit. And originally, the tree and the fruit were supposed to taste the same. They were interconnected. They were one. So the tree trunk, right, it's the stability. And it doesn't have to be a macho bravado thing. Because we all have masculine and feminine within each of us. It's a part of creation. It's needed for creation. If you don't honor the feminine, a masculine, it won't grow. It won't sustain. Because it won't be considerate enough about the relationships that it connects to. While the feminine without masculine will be just all about relationships, but will things actually get done without the masculine? Right? So the Eitz HaChaim, the tree trunk, is the masculine. And the fruit, the taste, is very often the feminine. But without the tree trunk, the fruits never would have come into fruition. And the Eitz HaChaim is what would have given immortality, ongoing creation. That would have just been immediate creation. Right? Which is just like how Adam and Chava existed. They existed, were they ever children? They were born as adults. They were born without previous conditioning as well. Okay, Shimi Borgen is back and better than ever. So, and then we'll make the Shabbat connection as well. So Shabbat is, well, it really is masculine and feminine. It really is just an ongoing loop between the two. But the, and then I'm going to address Shimi's question because it looks like Shimi is one of the only ones here. But Shabbat, right? How do you violate one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat? Right? Melechet machshavet. You violate the Shabbat with thought. Because the masculine and feminine creation does not need thought. The moment that thought leads, creation doesn't happen. Let's just be honest here. Which men or women, when they think too much, they don't attract the other gender? Thinking is not a law, is not something that attracts. So Shabbat is telling us, with Melechet Machshevet, that what creates the union, Shabbat is really the union, even though it begins with the feminine, because it's really the bringing, Vayachulu Hashamayim, Kala, what really brings in the feminine for Shabbat. The beginning of Shabbat, I mean Kabbalah, I mean we sing it, Eshet Chayil, it's all about the feminine in the beginning, and then Shabbat really culminates it. But Shabbat needs both the masculine and the feminine. And there's so many other examples of this. The Mishkan. Right? People often think that God is just masculine. And that's really where people are missing out. The Shekhinah, the presence of God, to bring the presence of God into this world is the feminine. God is the feminine. Right? We so often look at God as the one that is the authority, the one that tells, the one that guides. Right, the one that we lean on when we need support. And that's absolutely beautiful. B'nai Yisrael, that's the relationship there. And it's also the inverse. And then really the most beautiful example of this is in the Mishkan, in the Kodesh HaKodashim. Where does the Shekhinah exist? Between the two Kruvim. Karov, closeness. Because between the two Kruvim, which isn't even a male and female, it's just two people. Which is what the Romans, when they destroyed it, they said, what the heck is this? Two freaking boys eyeing each other. It seemed weird. But that's all that intimacy is. It's just two souls. The gender doesn't matter. And then the Shekhinah can rest. So, each of us, where do we experience masculine and feminine? That's such a key one. And we're going to wrap up here with questions in just a moment. And if there's anything that you want to know a little bit more of, you can go to energyrabbi.com. I offer one-on-one interactives where we could look at your own energetics and see how you experience things, how you could experience things differently. I also would love to give opportunities to give more classes on this. And you can email me at energyrabbi@gmail.com. And any questions? Shimmy is here. Let's get to your question, Shimmy. Thank you for loving my hat. What is strength within beauty? That's a great question. I mean, if you didn't realize, Shimmy, is that it's really a beyond words experience. It's when you emotionally engage with it. What is strength within beauty? You're saying Gevura shebetiferet. So, if I could put that into words, let me first experience it. So what I'm experiencing is like a strength that's not too immobile. Like it has, it can be, it's a little flexible. That's how I experience it. So it could be something along those lines. It's something that's strong. That could be. And there's many other interpretations of that. And then your next question is, what is the connection between a tzaddik and Yesod? Yes, awesome. Yosef is Yosef HaTzaddik. And that is a great question. So the tzaddik is, I mean, just any experience that you've had with a tzaddik before, right? I mean, they are the epitome of intimate, right? A real tzaddik. Just the way they look at you. Because they're not just concerned with themselves, which is really what intimacy is all about. Intimacy is when what I'm experiencing, particularly my pain, my challenge, does not get in the way of us. And that's really what the tzaddik is about. The tzaddik, like tzedakah, is an overflow of energy. The tzaddik is the experience of beyond time. Right? Yaakov, the tzaddik, is alive forever. Really, Yosef is too. So the tzaddik is also the reason why creation, the Yesod, why creation was made in the first place. So that's really an awesome area for exploration. So Shimmy and Peter, thank you for chiming in today. And I hope I adequately addressed your question. If not, email me, and I would love to just have an ongoing dialogue with that. What's your thoughts on that as well, Mr. Borgen? So thank you everyone for joining me and letting me share with you these secrets of creation that will continue to unfold. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful Shavuot. And my only blessing to you here is that you get to experience the Torah, not as a conceptual thing, but as an ongoing, live, it's here. Not as a rerun, but as a real experience. Thank you, and Chag Sameach.